won't steal Tom's thunder. I'm sure he has lots of questions and lots of insight for you. So please welcome Tom Brouchoud from Symantec.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that I do not teach at Stanford, and I have never hosted a workshop with Barack Obama or Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
But I hope you all have a good time tonight, and we're going to share some tips and tricks about what you can do in the job search, how you can make yourself more marketable, and things that recruiters look for, things that you as a candidate should be looking for, and just ways for us to be better professionals in what we do. But first, I'd like to start with a little story. I was actually interviewing a young product manager candidate. It's going back about 3 weeks. Relatively fresh grad, been working for about 8 months, right, post-graduation, bachelor's, and they were at a startup. And we got to the end of the process, and we're starting to negotiate salary. And the candidate, I said, what are you looking for as far as the salary is concerned? The candidate looks at me and says, well, I'm really looking for a base salary of about 160, 170. Looking for about a 30-35% bonus target, and somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $200,000 worth of stock. And I said, oh, okay, that's great. But our base salaries tend to be a bit higher than that, tend to be about 180, 190 for our entry-level product management. Our bonus targets are around the 40%. I hope that's okay. We do offer a company car, and the guy goes, wow, are you kidding? I said, yes! You started it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about getting a job and what we can do as professionals to make ourselves more marketable. I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm clicking the button and nothing's happening, so maybe I click the other button. No? Oh, it's the big button.
It's only technology.
It's all right. Okay, so it wasn't just me, folks. My lack of
keyboard. 2 years and 2 engineering degrees.
You're not hitting the any key.
No.
I'm going to push the button.
You're going to push the button. That is a technology fail.
Okay. All right. So, story time. So, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I mean, why do I get to be up here talking about being in a job search? Why do I have this thing that I do and go out to places and talk about what types of roles that I've had and such? So let me tell you a little bit about education. I was not a good high school student, like at all. Barely graduated, right? And so what I did was, I did what most high school students do when they almost don't graduate, and I went to junior college. And I realized when I went to junior college, that, gosh, I'm not doing so well here either. But about, I don't know, a month and a half in, I went to all my professors and I said, hey, I'm not doing so well. And they all said, hey, we know. And I said, well, I want to turn it around. I want to do something because nobody's yelling at me to do my homework anymore. I want to do something. And all but one of them said, no problem. And the one that said, I'm not going to do anything about it, said, well, 80% of the grade is in the final anyways. So, okay, good. Turned it around. Got on the honor roll, did things like student government, started volunteering, started doing all sorts of fun stuff, and then transferred into UC Berkeley, where I got a shiny English degree. Yay. That was amazing, English degree, and I thought, well, I'm going to be a professor, but I'm not really excited about English. So I decided that at that point I wanted to be an artist. Right? I want to go do computer animation and design. And so I went and got another degree, another shiny bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Fine Art from the Academy of Art in San Francisco. And then decided I didn't want to be an artist. Okay, now I have these 2 shiny degrees, don't want to do anything having to do with them. Yeah, I enjoy art and all that fun stuff, but what am I going to do now? So I ended up moving into a whole different area. My first job in talent acquisition was, I was basically fetching coffee, right, for animators, right? So I got a job in an animation company. PDI, ever heard of the movie Shrek? Right? So I was there a couple years before Shrek even came out, and I was fetching coffee. But my real job in talent acquisition, my first real job in talent acquisition was at the height of the dot-com boom, when everybody and their brother could be a recruiter. Right? Anybody with a pulse could be a recruiter. There were so many companies out there that they wanted recruiter after recruiter after recruiter. I came into my interview in downtown San Francisco with a startup called People PC. And I came up to the whatever floor it was, and I walked in, and there was about 10 people in the lobby, all looking for this one job. And they were all a lot older than me. And I'm thinking, I don't have a shot in heck of getting this job. They offered it to me. $25 an hour, which was amazing. And that was my first job in talent acquisition. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to screen a resume. Didn't know how to cold call a candidate. Didn't know anything about it. Went home the very first day after getting this job and sat on my couch and watched TV for 5 hours because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Had a stack of resumes that they gave me. And about 6, 7 o'clock at night, I just started calling every person on the stack of resumes. And sure enough, people started answering questions. I was taking notes, and therein started my career. Right? My second job in talent acquisition was more of the same, but that was the job where I actually was working in the semiconductor industry, right? So my job at People PC ended. I jumped into the semiconductor industry, and it was a roller coaster. It was a lot of fun, but it was really, really stressful. My first severance package. Oh, what a beautiful memory. Right, so fast forward a number of years, right? I had some really great experiences. I worked at SanDisk. I grew through the director ranks at SanDisk and decided to leave SanDisk and join a company called EMC. EMC was acquired by a little company called Dell. You remember that? Biggest technology acquisition in history. There was so much celebration, right? I got to go to all the different celebrations, and after the celebrations were done, they said, oh, and by the way, goodbye. Thanks. And I got my first severance package in my career. I've lost contracts. Contracts are different. Severance packages, that hits home, right? That hits home. And I started looking around for my next opportunity, and that was when now I need a job, right? I don't have one. I'm paid for a certain amount of time, right? But I need a job. And I interviewed, and I interviewed, and I interviewed. And that was a really tough time. Because I didn't get the job at Facebook, I interviewed there. Didn't get the job at Google, interviewed there. Didn't get the job at this company, I kept not getting jobs, and this was new to me. This was new to me, not getting jobs. When I was a contract recruiter, I was getting job after job. I was walking in a room of 15 people, and I was the person getting the job. I was cocky. It's like, this is great. And now, I wasn't getting the job. Now the competition was a lot tighter for people, and now I'm a director, and I'm not getting the work. This is new for me. It was very, very scary. This was one that really hurt. Tesla. Interviewed with Tesla, didn't get that job either. And the first time in my history of interviewing and being in a job, the actual director told me, the senior director, VP or whatever told me, you talk too much. Well, yeah, okay, thank you for being honest, but you talk too much, right? You don't listen enough. And that's why you're not getting the opportunity to test them. So, okay, that's about as real as you can get. And that caused me to think, gosh, why am I not getting these opportunities? Maybe it's not about these opportunities. Maybe it's about how I'm bringing myself, how I'm presenting myself, my genuine me to the opportunities. Well, then I did some other things that weren't necessarily the best thing for me. I took jobs that weren't necessarily the best fit for me, right? You go through the interview process, you see some red flags, and you ignore them, because I need a job. Right? I'm not going to go into all the details there, but those red flags, those little shoulder angel that's sitting there whispering in your ear, it's there for a reason, right? So don't ignore those. We can go into all sorts of questions. My goal here is not just to talk at you. Right? We're going to go through some stuff, I'm going to give you some ideas and thoughts, and then I'd like to have a real crisp and healthy dialogue about what we can do and how we can present ourselves better. That's what I hope to do here. I do a lot of volunteerism right now. I work with an organization called CSIX. They help people find jobs. I don't know if anybody here has heard of CSIX. But they're more in the Saratoga area. This is like my 4th visit to the SVPMA. right? So I've been here a few times, 2-3 panels, and this is my first talk. I do work with ProMatch, I work with the Wounded Warriors program, just a variety of different things, churches, things like that, just people looking for thoughts and what can I do when I'm looking for a job. It's what I do, it's what I know, it's what I try to help with wherever I can. And that's what brings me here today. Right? So I got a call, hey Tom, will you come in and have a little discussion with folks? Happy to do it. But really my goal is to be where you need me to be, answer the questions you need to answer, and we're going to go through things like resumes and interviewing skills and things like that. But my goal is to make sure that you get the questions you need to answer. Cool? Yeah. All right. So that's why I have to kind of stand around here. Sorry. How does somebody find a new job? In most cases, it starts with the resume, but I actually did a little research, and I thought I'd take a look at the bigger picture. So I started looking online, right? And the first thing I found was you type in how to find a job, and Google gives you all sorts of suggestions, right? Top 7 right there. How to find a job, right? Really, really easy. You type narrowing it down a little bit. Gosh, we're talking millions of results here. How to find an engineering job. And there's all sorts of results. We're talking, 197 million results on how to find an engineering job. Pretty cool, not bad. How to find a job you love, but in quotes, right? So we're narrowing down the field a little bit more, and we're only at 10 million. Okay, getting better, folks. 10 million, not so much. Get good. But I'm in California, so let's actually take a look. How to find a job you love and California. Pretty good, pretty good. Only 228 results. Okay, we're good. How to find a job you love in Alaska. Wow, let's really narrow this thing down, and you too can get paid to play and sleep alongside pandas in Alaska. That is amazing. But here's the problem. Kept going. Find me a job, please. Right? A lot of results there, 5,600. There is how to write a great resume. We're damn. I need a job. In quotes. And we got a lot of results there too, only 117,000. The top job interview mistakes. How to write a resume. The top 10 interview questions, followed by the top 15 interview questions, and then the next 29 impressive interview questions. There's just too much data out there, right? There's too much stuff for you to look at, too many things for you to go through, too many ways for you to confuse yourself in the process. So what I thought is, heck, why don't we bring, and this is what I've been doing for so many years, bring the recruiters in and actually share with you what's important to us, right? It's not about us, it's about you. But when we are taking the time to go through resumes, going through profiles, going through candidates, understanding the job, the manager, the organization, the department, and then trying to match that to the candidate, when we're doing that, there's a process we go through. And there are things we look for, and there are things that will kick you out, and things that will draw you in to the job, right? And what are those things? And how can we share that? So, let's start with the resume, okay? So, keeping it real in a resume. So this is just writing a resume, example, right? Be relevant to the job. A lot of times people will write resumes where they're a product manager, maybe like some of you in this room, and you're applying to a job in program management. Very different jobs, right? Very different jobs. Some similarities, some overlap, but they are, at their core, different positions. And in your career as a product manager, you've probably done a lot of program manager-y type stuff, right? How can you actually clarify that on your resume to make it more relevant to the actual position? Provide real examples of what you've done, not hypothetical examples. So people often, I always call this the superhero answer, right? Where people go in and, this is what I would do, or this is how I would grow a department, or this is how I would build out a plan, and they're not actually giving the real examples of how they've done it at other companies. Right? So provide real examples, and where possible, you want to use data. Right? So in your resume, if you helped decrease the product life cycle for an end-to-end product release by 15%, and you did it over XYZ time frame, this is a beautiful thing to share. Right? if you improved a particular project or you improved a particular process and you did it, you can measure it. These are great things to share on a resume. Chronological, anybody here know the difference between a chronological and functional resume? Okay. No? Just one in the back? You know? So chronological resume is really just that. It's a chronological example of all the things you've done. Talks about your most recent, usually reverse chronological, right? Talks about your most recent experience, and then goes backwards in time through the 2 pages of your resume, and ends with your education. That is perhaps the best type of resume, because what it does is it allows the recruiter and the hiring manager to go through your experience and understand what you did when, right? Pretty simple. A functional resume is a list of everything you've ever done professionally in a particular area, and then it kind of just lists the jobs as bullet points. I was here, I was here, I was here, I was here, I was here. And the problem is with a functional resume is somewhere halfway down that list is something the manager's going to be interested in. But it's that one thing you did 10 years ago for 3 months. Right? It's not necessarily representative of who you are now. So I don't know if anybody in here has a functional resume, but usually those go to the bottom of the pile. Move off to the side. People don't look at those. 2 pages max? Ish. Right? Unless you have a lot of things that you've done, like patents or publications or things like that. Keep your resume to about 2 pages. Have a summary, not an objective sentence. Or sorry, not have a summary of what you've done in the top. Objective sentences are a great way to get yourself screened out of a job, right? Because I've seen a lot of jobs come, or a lot of candidates apply to jobs, and they say, "Hey, I really am interested in the product management position at Apple." It's great. I know a couple people there. Should I send your information over? Okay, I'll take care of that for you. But a summary is sort of just a couple sentences about who you are as a professional. Know what you're claiming to have accomplished. A lot of times people put stuff on their resume that they try to make it sound as good as possible, right? Try to make your experience sound really exciting, or the things that you've done, or maybe you emphasize something a little bit more than you should, and suddenly that comes up in the interview. So suddenly you're in the interview, and they're starting to really dig into that piece of experience that you shined up a little bit, right? So really, really focus on what you're claiming to have done. I talked about that. Never put something you did once 10 years ago. And remember to puff read your regime, because spell check is hot enough. Okay? A lot of times people will go through their resume and they'll have words in there that just aren't showing up in spell check because they're all real words, but they're not the words you intended. So just be a little careful on that. So, any questions so far? Any thoughts? We can kind of keep this as a dialogue. Oh dear. Okay, yes?
The question is, should you be targeting, I feel like I have 2 audiences when I'm sending a resume. One is the ATS and one is the person who's reading it.
Okay.
And I'm always optimizing for the ATS, knowing the ATS, just for everybody, is just literally the machine that's reading it, and it matches it to the job description, and it does a word comparison.
Yeah, so applicant tracking systems, what you're talking about. So when you go into a standard applicant portal, right? So you go into any Symantec, you type in your resume, you attach it, and then it'll parse out the resume using parsing technology, put your name in the right bucket, and then, right, all that happens. It pushes the button and it goes into the system. Some applicant tracking systems attempt to use AI to actually match your information to the job. So it'll be, the recruiter will look at a list of candidates that have applied for this product management job, and it'll say, okay, here's the 81% fit, here's the 72% fit. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. We don't use that. I don't really know recruiters who really give that much credence. I mean, you might, maybe it's like the newspaper analogy where you look at the top thing you see, but that doesn't mean you don't go digging down, because AI has not reached a point where it is really giving us the answers we need, at least not yet. There's a lot of things that AI can do to give you trends, in data to understand where candidates are and most likely candidates that will respond to you when you reach out to them. But as far as resume matching, recruiters aren't there yet, meaning some companies might be doing some amazing stuff, but usually it's the talent acquisition organizations that will adopt that amazing stuff, and I haven't seen a lot of that yet, but it may be coming. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'd really worry about how do I get my resume to the top of the pile when the recruiter sees the great stuff I've done and passes it to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager has to now vet it, who's also a product manager professional. Any other questions? Yes?
More comments. One of the pieces of advice I always give candidates is that everything you put in a resume takes attention away from everything else in the resume. It should be highlights, not a complete biography. So 2 pages definitely is the max. If you have the patents or the other things, those are attachments, not part of the resume itself.
Good
But
advice.
focus in on the things that have the most impact
Very good advice.
and leave enough white space to make you stand out.
Any other questions on the resume? Yes, sir.
So if 5 pages is the max, what would be recommended size of the resume?
So you want me to talk about font size?
Margins.
I can do it. No, I mean, you want to make it something that's readable.
Font size, I think it's like 11 or 12 or something.
12 point fonts, calibri,
Yeah.
very
But
readable.
what
Blah, blah,
about
blah.
the actual, size? Because I've heard the recommendation just to have 1 page and just get rid of everything, get rid of your past experience, get rid of.
So I'm down with 2 pages, but I'm not alone. I mean, there are other people that have different opinions, right? I think 2 pages, and the way I always tell people is, listen, some people are told not to put things past 10 years on the resume and just kind of eliminate that stuff, or just put, I graduated here and then there was this time period and then my experience really starts here. I like everything on a resume, but in your most recent experience, assuming it's more than a month or 2, right? So a couple years or 3, you're going to put the most attention on that last position. So 3 to 5 bullet points of some accomplishments you did. And then as you go back in time, the bullet points get fewer and fewer, right? Until you are, say you have 20 years of experience like myself in this space. My experience that I had in the early part of my career, that's just bullets. If they really want to know what I was doing in my early career, they can ask me, right? But chances are they're going to be much more interested in the stuff I have more recently. And again, to Joan, what's your name, sorry?
Oh, Jim.
Jim, to Jim's point, you don't want to put everything in there, right? You want to put the things that define you as a professional, right? Did you have some major accomplishments? And you did a lot of cool stuff. Do you have anything like 2 to 3, maybe 5 things that are major accomplishments that you want to put, and those are your 5 bullet points in your most recent job, and then again, fewer and fewer. I recently had to do that. You're looking like you don't believe it. Like, I am not buying any of this thing this Tom guy is saying.
No, I'm just thinking.
It's all good. But are we cool?
Yeah,
All right. No problem. Yes, sir.
What's your take on cover letters?
Cover letters, great way to get screened in or out. Cover letters are a wonderful way to screw up the whole process. Let me tell you why. How much time do you spend on a resume? How many days, how many hours are you spending tidying up, organizing, making sure every I is dotted, every T is clean, type it. But you know what I'm saying, all the little details are there, you're not making any weird grammatical mistakes, you're saying, hey, I'm interested in the job at Apple when you're applying to Symantec, right? You spend about 10 minutes on a cover letter sometimes. You just kind of like, oh, I need to put some stuff down. Great way to screw up, right? In jobs like product management, it's a little more important. A little more, because the managers like to know how you write in addition to how you what's on your resume. But if you're going to do a cover letter and you're going to apply not necessarily through an applicant tracking system, but like via an email, put it in the body of the email, right? Make sure you read it, make sure a friend reads it, make sure it's clean and organized and not rambling. The other great thing about cover letters is they're a great way to explain gaps, right? So I was, you're taking care of a sick loved one, right? You're taking care of children, you're taking time off to go travel, whatever. Great way to describe those gaps, or to sort of say, or job transition. Gosh, I'm moving from an engineering role. A lot of product management professionals do this. they're an engineer, they're a software engineer, they're a hardware engineer, and they're moving into product management, that cover letter often is a great way to describe what their goals are now, right? And what they want to do in that next step. So it can be a really useful tool, just be really careful. Okay.
What I've done with cover letters is I'll write it, and then I usually wait to look at it the next day again. You know,
Look at it next day, next 3 days, and just kind of reread it.
Because I find that it lets me say why I think, I guess focusing more on the mission of what the company is, like bring more of the company specific things into a resume, or into the process to say why in this specific industry I feel passionate about it, or I feel like I would be a good fit.
Do you know when I do that? When I get really pissed off at work, I'll write the email, and then I don't do nothing in it, right? And the next day I will read that email again and see if I still feel the same way.
And delete
it.
Don't put anybody in the two address.
Oh, never anybody in the two line. I made that mistake once, and it went out. Oh dear.
And then you discover the hotkey combination that automatically sent that email that you were
Whatever it was, I've done it, and yeah, but great. And the same thing applies to a resume, cover letters, reread them, look at them. Now, eventually you do have to send them, right? But making sure that it is
But I picked up
spelling, content, all sorts of stuff. Any other questions on the resume? And we can go into more detail. We can talk a little bit about interviewing, talk about some other things, but any other questions or thoughts? Yes, sir.
If it's the same job function, like product management at multiple companies that you're applying for, is it customized resume for every job that you're applying for?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So for, let's say I'm applying to 3 companies
Okay.
in product management. So should I have a customized product management resume for each of these 3 companies?
So say if you're applying to a product management and the roles are roughly similar, I doubt your experience, like the accomplishments you made, you're gonna like, okay, I'm gonna pick this accomplishment for this company and this accomplishment for that company, because that really applies. I doubt there's gonna be too much in it.
Right.
Maybe this is a services company and you did a really cool services project, right? And so you don't have it on your main resume, but you think it'll resonate with this particular company. Sure, go ahead and put it, right? But you're gonna want, if you have experience that's eclectic, for example, product management background, program management stuff that you've done, and maybe you even dabbled in product marketing, right? And you're actually more on the marketing, customer-facing side. Then maybe having a few different versions of resumes aligned to the different areas you might be getting into is a good idea. But per company, and you can do it.
That's too much work.
You're just gonna have a lot of different versions, and you're gonna drive yourself crazy, right? Yes, sir.
The only thing I'll tweak in that manner is if companies are using different keywords when they're talking about some of the steps and activities, maybe I'll tweak a couple keywords in my resume to match the vocabulary they're using in their job description, even if you aren't needing to swap out complete bullets and whatever, just sometimes vocabulary tuning.
Thank you.
Good advice? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Like profession like from engineering to product management, people are getting transition, how they can do the summary in the first phase to show that what we done or how we are eligible.
So basically the question is, I'm gonna repeat it and make sure I got it right, okay? So basically you are an engineer. You have not yet made the switch into product management. And so now we need to show the people hiring for product management, gosh, I'm a good hire, right? So, not always the easiest thing to do, but there's a couple things you can start looking at. One is go to your network. Go to the people that have worked with you as an engineer who can speak to you or for you, right? See if any of those people are connected to the management at the company you're interested in applying to, and have them advocate for you on the inside. That's a good thing. But say you don't have that, right? So then you have the cover letter option where you can say I'm looking to make a switch into product management. And these are some of the things I did in projects in my current role, which lead me to believe I would be an excellent product manager at a company. Because oftentimes, engineers, they're doing a lot of that type of work, but not directly. I mean, they're doing it for the release, right? They're building the code, or they're building the device, or whatever they're building. But they're managing that. They're not managing the end-to-end, right? But you can talk to those experiences, and I will tell you, engineering backgrounds really resonate well with management in a product management for an engineering product. It resonates. So making that switch is not always easy, I hear you. But once you do it, I will tell you it's hard to go back. Right? Say, I don't want to be a product manager anymore, I want to be a software engineer. That's a little harder, right? But once you make the switch, you can really kick off a really great career. Right? There's lots of little things you can do. And
I had someone who did that, and what it was they progressed from being an engineer to being a scrum master to being product manager.
That is
They were
excellent.
able to show that
I
in
like
their
that.
couple of saying, see, I progressed from this to this. So I, because it's a little bit easier transition than the one hop from the other.
Yeah.
So that might be
Take a
something-
class, get a certification.
Yeah.
The Scrum,
That's
Scrum Master, so Agile is a great way to go. You can learn other product management techniques, or project management, techniques, that'll help get you that experience and exposure. And oftentimes, those certificate programs actually have employers ready at the end of it to look at you for that next step. So, good
Or you
stuff.
get contacts there.
Other questions?
Just a comment to that. Mufi Gideali spoke here about 4 or 5 years ago and gave a really soothed piece of advice around that. Think of the hiring manager. If you got a choice of somebody who's been doing that exact job for 5 years and somebody who is looking to come into your company and make a transition to a different role at the same time, who are you gonna pick? So, a lot easier if you can get into the company using your current cred, engineering or whatever it is, take a role that's similar to that or a slight variant of that,
Transfer.
and then start cozying up with the product manager there and saying, hey, you got anything you need to offload? And start getting some practice doing those kinds of things, and also building some cred with that person so they can advocate for you when the next opportunity opens up.
That's a really good idea as well. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, let me move on here. We can keep going on questions. And remember, overinflating your experience is a bad idea. Okay, there we go. I'm so proud of that. Okay, moving on. All right, let's talk a little bit about interviewing like a boss. This is basic stuff. Be on time, be prepared. Oftentimes people think, how prepared is prepared, right? How much research? I have had candidates show up and they open up the binder of my company and they say, let me show you all the stuff that you do. And I say, I already know what we do. What do you do? But be prepared, right? Have researched. If you're going on site with the company or you're talking to the hiring manager on the phone, they want to have an understanding that you know what they do and know what you do and how it can apply to their job. Right? You think that's basic. We cannot tell you how many times. Now, when we're cold calling you, and you haven't heard of us, that we get. Right? But if you're taking the time, to set up one of our people to talk with you, really make sure you spend the opportunity, learn about the company, learn about the role, what they're doing, and make sure you have a good opportunity, a good way of sharing what you do with them. It's really, really important. Okay? Know what you've done and be able to talk about it. So people have a lot of things that they've done in the background, right? So you have the stuff you put on your resume, but really having a good dialogue to share with the manager about the things that you've learned from the projects that you worked on, the accomplishments you made, having that dialogue ready to go is super important. Because as you are going through the interview, the manager's going to ask you a question. They're going to say, hey, tell me about this project. And you're going to say, okay, I'll tell you about the project. Oh, interesting. Tell me about this thing that you just mentioned, and it's an offshoot. You start going in this direction. Now they say, oh, great. Now tell me about, and they will start digging in and wheeling into that experience. And if you haven't really thought it through about what are the things that worked, what are the things that didn't work, what are the failures, what are the successes of that project, you're going to kind of stumble, and it's going to look like you're not prepared. People know what they've done, but oftentimes they don't really understand how it helped them be the professional they are today. Right? So know what you've done and how it helped you grow as a professional. That will resonate with the hiring manager. Know where you failed and where you succeeded. Prepare stories that will help you demonstrate. So when I go into an interview, and I've gone through this now a few times, and I didn't get the job at Facebook, and I didn't get the job at Tesla, and I know what I did wrong. Well, Tesla, they told me I talked too much, that's okay. But at Facebook, I think I got a pretty good idea of what I did. And they asked me some questions and I fumbled. I kind of stumbled a little bit with the answers. It was about my experience, but I wasn't prepared for that one because they picked something kind of random that I had on my resume and I just wasn't prepared for that. And I kind of was stumbling a little bit and they were nice about it, but then I got the call and I was like, thank you, no thank you, right? So really understand your failures, understand your successes, and be able to talk to them. Yes?
In the scenario where you do not get picked for the position, how do you extract that feedback? You're saying you got something from Tesla, that's good. I've tried getting that feedback, but recruiters generally are not forthcoming.
I think some of the strongest managers and some of the best leaders are the ones that actually provide the real feedback to their candidates. But companies are so paranoid, worried about being sued, that they will give you the company line over and over and over again. And one of the things I ask my recruiters to do is to give me every detail, but oftentimes it'll be, for example, as a hypothetical example, you could have some really great experience in the services side, but we really need somebody with some more consumer background. And that's the reason. Great experience, but gosh, consumer. So we'll tell you that, right? But if you came in and yelled at somebody, I'm not saying you would, right? We're not necessarily going to say, well, you were kind of mean to us, right? We just didn't feel you'd fit with the team. So there's lines that we won't cross when it comes to providing feedback.
That's fair.
But at the same time, get a good relationship with your recruiter. So the recruiter is often seen as the enemy. A recruiter's job is to find the most qualified person for the position. That is their job, right? They're matchmakers. They're the people that what do you call what's the word I'm looking for? They get dinged if they don't fill a job in a certain amount of time, because for a company, getting that software engineer, getting that product manager on board, that's dollars, right? That's our ability to launch our product, our ability to get the new release out. So it's their job to get that person in as fast as possible. But I will tell you, it is so much more dangerous to hire the wrong person than it is to hire the right person and take longer, right? So the recruiter's always looking for that right fit, the right person for the job. And I tell my recruiters, give the people real reasons, right, as much as we can. But I hear you, it's make a good relationship with the recruiter, and at the end of the process, you didn't get the job, say, hey, just tell me, what could I do differently next time?
I phrase my question as, I'm still very much interested in your company. I've invested quite a bit. In a few months, what could I do to make myself more attractive? And even then, more often than not, I'm being candid with you, recruiters have come back and say, oh, we are convinced you walk on the water and you can part seas and this and that, but still something or other, that leaves me with nothing actionable per se. And that leaves a very unfavorable impression in my mind of the organization.
You probably don't want to work with them at all. But I hear you.
Consider that a gift.
Consider it feedback also.
No, if it was my recruiter, I want to know. But one of the things I would recommend, the other thing you might do, talk to the hiring manager, right?
Oh, that's, okay, so that's another thing. I would prefer.
Oh boy.
I'm doomed, man. Can I get a chair on this?
Let's take a pause. How many people are able to get to the hiring manager once the interview is over?
How many people, by show of hands, have interviewed for a job and just not been able to get to the hiring manager at all? They just
Or
figure out
never
the
heard
basic.
anything again.
Oh, that,
Never
heard
heard
anything
anything again.
well, that all the time.
There's a few of them, and how many have gotten back to the hiring manager? Just curiously.
One is kind of
Yeah.
So thank you.
Tom, how many recs are on your desk at any given time?
The recruiter,
Yeah.
20. So
So you have 20 positions to fill in 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
3 months.
3 months.
Right, so
And-
average time to fill for most positions is somewhere between 45 to 60 days.
And how many involve panel interviews?
Very few, meaning like 5 people in a room
Yeah.
and one candidate standing there having to get rapid
Or
fire
5
questions.
separate people
Or 5 separate people, one after the other, all of them,
for that one candidate.
all of them, right? They're all interviews that
Sequential.
involve multiple on-sites.
Panels
are more common now, too.
20% of a company's time is spent in trying to hire additional staff, right?
A lot of time.
Yeah.
So one of the things we do is we spend a lot of time, and actually I have a couple slides in my appendix that I could show you, because we spend a lot of time training our managers, and we spend a lot of time training our recruiters. And I have a slide showing what do we tell our managers to do, and what do we tell our recruiters to do, right? So that's Symantec, that's me, that's the teams I've managed over my career operate this way. Not everybody does a good job at this, right? There are a lot of companies that I would say, the recruiters, that are not doing, in my opinion, what are basic courtesies, right? Helping people understand where they met and where they did not meet. So I can't answer for all companies, but I can say that if you build a strong partnership and relationship with the hiring manager, oftentimes you'll have their email address or phone number, give them a call. Hey John, I didn't get the job, but I'd love to hear from you. What can I do better next time? Because I'd love to be considered down the road. But I hear you, it's frustrating. And I had the same problem. I had the same problem with many of the companies I spoke to.
2 or 3 companies that I can think of, my direct experience, the recruiter made it clear, I'm not going to get direct contact information of anybody that is interviewing me. You know, nobody bothers.
For any single candidate, how long are the candidate surveys retained by those that have interviewed the candidate?
So you're talking about a survey for a candidate,
Like a little scorecard. How long ago the scorecard retained?
meaning the candidate feedback form.
The interview.
No,
Interview
the interview
performance,
performance, yeah.
Usually indefinitely. A good applicant tracking system will have that attached to the candidate, and then we have the right, the GDPR rules, right? We have, people have the right to be forgotten, so if you delete the candidate record, then that goes away, right? But in a lot of companies, it's notes that are attached to the candidate for as long as that candidate's in the company's database. Yes, sir?
There's another fundamental problem. This is assuming that somebody will set your resume, they're impressed with it, and they call you to interview,
Yep.
and that's fine. But when you look at some of the common product management roles that go on LinkedIn, Premium, look at it, some of them, there are 400, 500 applicants, and I don't believe that recruiter is going to go over all the
No, they're
400
not.
applications.
They're not, absolutely.
When I see some of those positions, I have exact relevant experience that they're asking for, and I don't believe there are 400 candidates. I can say for sure. Right. So what happens in those situations? I have no clue, because I don't get it. I get a standard
nothing,
response.
it goes into the black hole.
Your resume
Yep.
is great, awesome.
Yep.
Unfortunately, you have moved on, you filled in this position. So how do you handle that? Because that's very critical before you get a foot in the door, right?
No, I agree with you 100%. Well, that's a tough one. One of the things I would do as a candidate, and this is just because I've been through this now a few times, I would find out who the hiring manager was at the company. I wouldn't actually go through the applicant tracking system at all.
Yeah.
Right? Never applied to any job. What I did is I figured out who was, and if there was too many, for example, in a company, there might be multiple managers that kind of look like they handle mobile, right? And so I would find, okay, forget the managers, because I might get the wrong one. What about the director? Oh, there's 2 directors that handle mobile. Okay, what about the VP? The VP, oh, VP overall mobile. Okay, so somewhere in that person's organization, that position exists, and that VP is gonna wanna fill that rack. So I'm gonna call that person, I'm gonna get a hold of that person, I'm gonna email that person. Well, LinkedIn makes you pay for it, right? They make you pay for it. Figure out the naming convention of the company, right?
Oh, yeah.
Figure out the naming convention, Tom_Brouchoud@Symantec.com. That's actually my name, because that's the naming convention for Symantec. First name underscore last name, right? Figure it out, send this individual a quick note. So sorry to reach out to you directly. Here's my resume, I'm highly interested in your opportunity. So that's just one little thing you could do. Get in front of the decision makers. Forget the applicant tracking system, or do both. Do both simultaneously. Apply, and then maybe go for the recruiter. I'm the recruiter for mobile at this company. Boom. That's the person you need to talk to. Recruiters are notoriously great at wanting to talk to people, right? But here's the thing, the average recruiter might get 400 applicants. And the 400 applicants, they go through the first 100, they don't even look at 101 through 400. They go through the first 100, they find the 3 or 4 candidates that look really good in that first 100, and they submit those 3 or 4 candidates onto the next rec.
Yeah.
You don't even see candidates number 101 through 400. Yes, sir.
So I think one of the things that is the double-edged sword of online application is, on the one hand, it was so appealing. Oh, I don't have to mail pieces of dead tree that have been pressed together to someone or whatever. And this is the side effect, is now there's 400 people applying for roles. I think, Tom, in the recruiter panel, you and the other recruiters were talking about how difficult it is being on the receiving end of that and the like. And in a lot of cases, the real answer is, and I say this, you know, I see people show up at this organization and at other meetups when they need a role, right? When they're now looking for a job. And I think you got to look at this as no different than someone training for a marathon. You don't decide to start running like 26 miles when the marathon is like next week, right? You're going to hurt yourself. It's not going to go very well for you. A lot of, at least what I've experienced, and I think others like Jim and others, is this is a marathon, this is not a sprint. And that means that, you know, you need to be setting up essentially your detection sensor network for opportunity. And it's events like this, it's other events that you're out there.
It's connecting with your networks.
It's all of those things that, you know how I got my role at Amazon? A guy that I went to college with 25 years ago in Canada, somebody contacted him and said, do you want to work for Amazon? He's like, I'm the CEO of a startup. Go talk to Brendan, he's looking right now. I talk to him like once a year. That was how it happened, which is like ridiculous.
So the message here, just to sort of tie it up, the message here is to be one of those 4 to 5 candidates that gets submitted. Say you're candidate number 120. You need to figure out a way how to get in front of the people who are saying, yes, I want to talk to these 4 people, right? You need to talk to the hiring manager who says yes to the resumes the recruiter sends over. You need to get in front of the recruiter that's putting together the list, right? And a phone call sometimes is so much more effective than an email. Emails are easy to ignore. And if you're calling a VP, call after 5:30. Right? Because then the executive assistant goes home, oftentimes they'll pick up their own phone. Sorry, so little tips. Yes, sir.
So as a hiring manager, I would give priority to internal referrals. So people, like employees that work, figure out someone that works at the company. Doesn't matter if they're in product management or not, like the engineering or whatever, and have them do an internal referral, because I'm more likely to look at that than one of the 100 that came in through the
Agreed. And that's, so any recruiter, when they're creating a candidate slate, right, what they're doing is they're pulling from all the different ways that candidates come in. Some of the people that applied, right, the internal referrals that are happening, the internal mobility candidates, so the candidate over at this organization that wants to transfer to this organization, and the ones that recruiters have gone through LinkedIn and found like a couple really good people that look like they're fit. But I agree with you. Referrals are an amazing way to get seen, because hiring managers really love it when somebody who they trust and know, or at least that they've heard of and seen in another organization, says, hey, see you have an open position, you need to talk to this person. So thank you for that. That's
Just a follow-up question to that, because that I believe works really well. How long should you wait after you make a contact with somebody, a company you're interested in? And you're entrusting that person that something's gonna happen, but you don't get paid. Do you then go through the normal channels? You trust somebody else?
There's a fine line between talking and stalking, right? So you want to make sure that you're respectful, but at the same time, following up on a semi-regular basis, once every week is not unheard of. Hey, just following up. What I always do is I send the meat of the outreach in the first email, and then I just reply all to my sent file.
Yep.
Hey, just following up. Then it's a little bit less intense. Hey, I haven't heard from you, and what are you doing? And I see that you like lasagna for lunch, and stuff like that. You don't want to do that, right? So, anyways. And once every 2 weeks, and then maybe drop it. After a while, they're seeing your emails, and that's telling you a couple things. A, they may not be interested in B, maybe you don't want to work for them anyways if they're going to treat you that way.
On the other hand, also keep in mind they have so many emails, so there's also a good probability you just get lost. And if you won't ping, you can be positive one of the other candidates will. So again, don't stop, but on the other hand, don't just count on them for seeing your email.
Very good, thank you.
And change the channel, you know, try a text, try a phone, try something else, try a physical thing.
And the other thing you can do.
Email, phone, text.
So I was very, very, very interesting. I found out that one of my key hiring managers who I've been trying to reach happens to be one of the dads at my kid's school. So I was at an event, and I'm like, hey, guess what? I've been trying to reach you. You know, it's not necessarily a normal way of connecting with somebody, but I like the different avenues, right? Text, email. Don't give up, but at a certain point, if they're just not getting back to you, move on.
Keep in mind you're trying to sell the best to you. So because you want them to hire you at the end of the day. So you don't want to be the most annoying guy on earth, but you want to be committed, right? So kind of also when you do these things, kind of put the better side of you to display.
Persevering but not a pest.
Yes.
Let's say you know 3 people at a company, potential contacts to push your resume through. Is it bad form to hit your bets and have them all submit your resume?
Yes. So what you want to do?
Summary of the question.
Oh yeah, thank you. So the question was, you know 3 people at a company. Any one of them could get your resume in front of the right person. Is hedging your bets. You send all 3, and the first person to get it gets the employee referral bonus. My answer to that is yes, reach out to all 3 and connect with them before saying, hey, please refer me. Re-establish the connection. Hey, Susan, I see you are now at Amazon. You know, how are you doing? How are things going? Would love to connect. That's your outreach. What you really want is you really want Susan to refer you for a job. But you do this rinse and repeat for all 3. Susan gets back to you right away. Hey, how's it going, Don? Love chatting with you. How's life at XYZ? And then you can engage with Susan and say, Susan, I'm looking for a new opportunity. Would you be willing to? And then stay with Susan for a bit. Right? Say all 3 reach back to you, then you got to choose, right? But the reason you don't want to reach out to all 3 and just maybe all 3 go, and then we get into the situation where Susan referred you on Monday, John referred you on Monday at 3 when Susan was Monday at 9, and all 3 of them are like looking for the referral bonus. Yeah. And after 3 months after you get hired, and then they're kind of like, well, I guess it wasn't that special at all, right? In the first place. So
with that being said, one of the strategies I use is to go to the most senior person I know.
Yeah,
I mean, not just talking about their referral bonus, it also makes a big difference on who is the one who actually advocates for you.
Yeah.
And having that as a senior manager, that makes a big difference.
well, make sure you know what the person's going to say about you.
Yeah.
Right? I know people at companies that I don't want advocating for me at all.
Yeah.
Right? But good point. And I like the idea of somebody more senior. That's a great idea. Because then that person could be,
That would be
maybe
the
a
order.
VP, they're not going to get the bonus, but gosh, VP referral weighs a lot.
Who works in that department, would have the same manager.
And the challenge is that the smaller company you get, the less chance you're going to have somebody in the company. So how do you then market yourself to the small companies, right? We don't have contacts, right? So there's.
And for the record, I've never done that, but I've had several people that have recommended that I do that. So just curious what you would say.
Yeah, no harm reaching out to all of them, but at the end, I pick somebody to kind of take it, and then you just ping that person and see what happens.
Just wanted to get back to the comment you raised about having the perfect fit and not getting a call. In addition, the hiring manager's looking to minimize risk as much as possible, and often they're on short time cycle to get the rec filled. So they're going to go to their network first, and chances are good that by the time that ad shows up, they've already picked 2 or 3 candidates for the first round of interviews. So, you know, they go to people like Tom to help fill the rest of the funnel, because if one of those doesn't work out, they need plan B. But
and usually what happens is you get 10 qualified candidates to fill 1 role. It's like a 10 to 1 funnel. Now that doesn't include everybody who applied. Everybody who applied, that's the 400, right? Then you find the 10 in the 400, and whether it's in the 400 or outside of the 400, right? And then 10 goes to, 4 phone screens, goes to 2 on-sites, goes to 1 final. And the person gets hired. So it is a funneling type of activity that's done. Your goal is to be in that 10, right? Well, your goal is to be the 100, of course. But your goal is you at least want to be in that 10, and there are strategies you can deploy to make it so you stick out from the 400.
That's a question to the audience, because I think this part I've always struggled with, and I think it actually recruiters struggle with on the other side, which is, hey, do I even actually want this particular role? Like, the part that I'm always kind of curious about is, if you look at most of the job descriptions that are on the web for a company, Amazon is guilty of this, like product managers. If you want to be a product manager for Alexa, go and look at all the various descriptions. You mostly can't tell which part of it you'll be working in. You might know it's hardware versus software or whatever. And so there's a very difficult challenge as a candidate to like, do I even want this role? Will I be working with someone that I want to? And vice versa, the hiring manager has the problem in the reverse direction, which is like, not just is this person qualified, but do I actually want to work with them? I don't know how that actually gets overcome in reality, other than by direct interpersonal connections.
So, I forget who said it. Oh, you said it. You got a job 25 years ago. You went to school with somebody, and they referred to. Very few people get jobs because they just apply. Yep. Right? The percentages are low. Now, it still is a double-digit number at Symantec. Still double digits, but the direct sourcing numbers, where my recruiters, my team goes out and finds people and pulls them in, about 40% of overall hiring.
That's
so
high.
Very, very strong recruiting team.
That's high.
Very well. That's good and bad. 40% is good. You think, good job, team. But that's pulling from other buckets that I think are really important, like employer referrals, internal mobility. It pulls from other buckets when we're having to do more heavy lifting. So I want to see higher employee referral numbers, want to see higher internal mobility numbers, right? That's important. But people that just apply, that number is very low. And there are some companies, not Symantec, but there are some companies that worked in the past that actually look at applicants in a negative light, with a negative light. They say, wow, if they applied, then they're really not the best of the best of the companies circling the wagons to keep them, right? There's an impression that the person is unemployed or desperate or get me out of here, and it's wrong. It's not the right impression, and recruiters have been fighting this battle for years. But there's that impression, right? Companies will do that. So really engaging with the recruiter is not a bad thing. Right?
There is the reverse halo effect as well.
Yeah.
I observed this. So I've mostly worked at small startups, nameless, faceless corporations mostly that most people have no idea. And outsized responsibility in such small organizations. But when I was looking, I took 1.5 years off. When I went finally looking, it was hard. Fast forward, I had the role at Amazon 4 months. I got recruiters showing up all the time. And actually, I kind of find it offensive. If I'm being honest. I'm the same guy I was 4 months ago with the same capabilities and experience and whatever. And now I'm apparently interested in qualified.
You got the brand thing.
Be aware of
that the halo effect comes in other forms as well, right? Your network with people.
Well, and just to further on that, there are a lot of companies that are doing, we're getting off topic a little bit, but there's a lot of companies that are doing more hiring towards competencies over skills, right? Knowing that skills can be taught, but competencies can't. And competence, I guess they can, but they're harder to teach. The competencies is more my ability to effectively communicate with a multinational project team. That's a competency, right? That's my abilities to communicate, not necessarily can I program in C++, or am I a great Java developer, do I understand Agile, am I a Scrum Master, right? So a lot of companies are focusing on that, and companies will actually do a decent job of that, or companies like Google. If you look at Google employees, and you see some of their backgrounds and the things they did before Google were like dishwasher. I mean, I'm kind of making it up as I go along, but like really non-traditional jobs, and now they're a software developer, right? So not a lot of companies are doing that yet, but to your point, you're coming from small startups, but Amazon did hire you. And Amazon is a company that goes after really great talent. So companies are moving in the right direction, but it's not universally.
I just wanted to follow up on the question was asked about looking for the right fit.
Yep.
So how do you advise someone looking to do an informational interview?
Those are, I love informational interviews, but they're very hard to get because what that means, it's kind of like going to somebody and saying, hey, can you mentor me? Right? Because there's a time commitment associated with that. And so I love informational interviews, but really what I would do if you're looking for an informational interview is pick an organization that has been doing some good hiring, maybe not doesn't have an opening, and engage with the leader of that organization. Chances are they know the roadmap. They know that next year they're going to be hiring 4 more product managers, and engaging with you now is exactly what they want to be doing and should be doing. And oftentimes recruiters are so busy with the here and now, they're not able to pipeline great candidates for the future positions. Maybe they'll keep a couple extra ones as they're working on this position, and that would be a great opportunity. But it really would be something that the hiring manager would tend to do directly, informational interviews. Recruiters are a little hesitant to set those up, oftentimes, so
that's when you reach out to your network.
You reach out to your network, you reach out to the managers. Even like VPs at startups, if you're interested in startup work, they're not getting paid as often as maybe a VP at an Amazon or a company, right? So maybe they'd be more interested in doing more informational stuff. Try that. Any questions? Okay. I popped a few more things, bullet points up here, just when you're interviewing. So prepare your stories, we talked about that, but prepare everything. Prepare your failures, the decisions you made, the customer interactions that did not go well. Have them in your mind, because if you answer failures and you don't have a learning from the failure, then it's just a failure. Now, everybody learns from failure. Failures are a normal part of life. But understand what you learned. You know, I dealt with this customer, and I really didn't go the way I planned. We weren't able to drive, whatever it was. But here's what I did differently next time. And this worked really well. So I was able to change the way I interacted, and I was able to land with the same customer a year later, whatever it was. Failures in leadership, decisions you've made. One of the things I always use is I have made bad hires for my team, myself, right? Recruiters I brought into my organization, I've made hires that, had I to do it over, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't hire that person. But I listen to the red flags now, and I start really digging into those things, and I don't make as many bad hires, right? In fact, I don't think I've made a bad hire in years, because I'm really conscious of that. But I bring that up in interviews because the positions I interview for are generally leadership positions. And I want to show that I have grown and evolved as a people leader. Yes?
I'd also mention that when talking about failures specifically, I think storytelling is really important. Speaking about the session we had a couple of months ago, I mean, you want the other side to relate to the situation you were at, to not think you're just a failure, but how did you come to it? And the skills of storytelling, of how to bring the person in front of you to the situation and sympathize with you is really important. So it's not only know the highlights and the lowlights of the story, but also know how to create the affection and the response from the other side towards a negative and a positive story.
Well, thank you, that was awesome. And the best interviews are conversations. So stories, conversations. If you find yourself in an interview where it's rapid fire question after question after question, do you want to work? That's tough. You don't want to work for that company. Yeah. Right? The best situations are ones where you're actually having a real conversation with the person. You're talking about the things that worked, the things that didn't work, things you're excited about, the things that you're proud of, and the learnings that you had as a result of the things that you didn't do so well. Moving on, never badmouth company, boss, right? Best interviews and conversations, not interrogation. And confidence, not arrogance, sells, right? People talk about confidence. You want to be able to describe the things you do well with confidence, but you don't want to come off like your stuff don't smell, right? You really don't, because I just didn't hire somebody onto my team for that exact reason. The person might be the best recruiter in the world, but I didn't hire them. Because I'm thinking to myself, gosh, are they gonna come in and start creating waves with the other people on my team? Can't have that. Love them, but not doing it. Right? So confidence in what you can do, but some humility and gosh, I'm good, but I'm learning too. I'm a lifelong learner. These are the things that I'm trying to get better at over time. Any questions on anything? Yes?
What about if you have a gap in your resume, when you look at the skills that you're looking for, and maybe some superficial knowledge of that or not?
So to rephrase the question, you asked two questions actually. One was the gap in the resume, right? And the other.
Sorry, I meant skills.
Oh, it's skills, but not a time gap. Thank you for clarifying. So you don't have the XYZ skill that they say in the job description, right? There's actually, it's interesting, there is a research out there that if a man
So
sees a
happy you
job
brought this up.
description.
I was gonna say it myself, I'm so happy you're bringing this up.
Yes, if a man sees a job description and they are a 50, I think it's 50%, I've seen different.
Yeah, it's about 50.
50% match, they apply.
Yeah.
And it needs to be 100% match for the woman to apply.
Or 90 at least.
Or 90, well, I've heard all sorts, I've heard 80, I've heard 100. I was actually at the Grace Hopper conference and they were saying 100. So it's interesting, different data out there, but the disparity is huge. And I love the question because the answer is nobody is going to be 100% match for every job description. Very rare that I find a candidate that checks all the different boxes.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you do that?
Why would you do that job if it's a 100% fit?
Well,
Well,
if it is 100% fit, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, can you come and do exactly the same thing that you did before? Like, that's like
No learning here.
So the way I do
Listening
it
to the
is,
research on women applying for jobs and men, it's been around for a long time, and as I understand it, it's not so much on the other side, the interviewer or recruiter or whoever you're talking to, it's in women's heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
They
just
want
to
to
make sure
yeah,
that
they're
it's
self-selecting
our
out.
training.
Oftentimes, women self-select out before they even
Yes.
give themselves the opportunity to get in front of the manager. So I say go for it. My advice is, I mean, if you're only a 10% match, you're like, wow, that's a software engineering job, and I'm a marketing person. Okay, you're gonna want to have a reality check about that. But my advice is go for it. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So, but if you're really like a 50% match of the job, and they're saying, I need this, I need this, I need this, and you're really only 50% match, you're gonna wanna leverage some of those skills we've talked about, right, to get in front of the right people. And at that 50% mark, the right people, that's the hiring manager. It's not even the recruiter anymore. Screw the recruiter, right? Because the recruiter's not gonna pass your 50% match resume to the hiring manager because they're trying to get the 70, 80% matches in front of the hiring manager. So get in front of the hiring manager yourself. That's hard,
Thank you.
right?
I have another question.
Yes.
So, a lot of people that I know have gone through interview sessions where they've been asked to go and do a presentation.
Yep.
And bring samples of their work.
Yep.
Can you speak to that?
Okay, so I've noticed this in smaller companies. I haven't, well, I take that back. Some companies, like big companies, will ask you to do, I'm going off on a tangent here, like a PhD presentation, let's put that aside. But if you're talking about a big job, like a director, senior director, VP job, oftentimes they will ask you to do a presentation. So the question was, I've seen a lot of companies asking people to do presentations in the application process. What I've seen at smaller companies is they're actually having you come on site and do kind of these real world example days where you sit there and they come at you with different challenges that are happening in the average workday and they want to see how you respond. Like weird ass stuff like that. Not that it's not valuable, but
Real world. It's odd.
it's odd, it's different, right? And a lot of people are like struggling with this a little bit. You always have to be, thoughtful of what you're comfortable with. think of the jobs, think of the types of positions you're interviewing for, and is it reasonable to ask somebody to come in and do a presentation, right? So if you're a graphic designer, I'd say the answer is yes. If you're somebody who's going to be presenting to customers, I would say the answer is yes, right? There's a lot of opportunity to show how you interact and how you show up, right? When a customer's in the room, I think that's a reasonable, not completely out of the out of left field to ask. But I'd love to hear if there's anybody else's perspective.
Coding whiteboards.
Coding whiteboards, that's normal. That's normal.
Yeah.
That's not like prison. But coding whiteboards with like 4 or 5 people sitting there.
Absolutely.
Right? That happens. And they're asking questions, yes, good.
Years and years ago, my first job in a software company, part of the role was that you would do support, but you'd also do training. So in the final set of interviews, you had to do a presentation on how to do something. They didn't care what it was. And I like to bake, and this is, I was in my 20s. I did on how to make chocolates and cookies. So it had to be like a 10-minute presentation.
Can I have that recipe?
I brought a batch of chocolates and cookies and a gallon of milk with me. I got the job.
Of course you did.
Everyone likes cookies.
That is my weakness, is chocolate.
You didn't bring it up. It would have been
You
fantasy.
did something that it had nothing to do with software. So I think if you look at it as a chance to kind of show that, okay, yeah, I'm serious about the job, but I'm not this overly anal person that only is going to say what I think you want to hear.
That's good. I love that example.
Opportunity.
But I am seeing it crop up more. Right? Candidates telling me, or my recruiters, I'm going through the interview process, and next Thursday is my big presentation with this other company. And I'm like, okay, we'll give you an offer this week. Cancel the other interviews. All right. Other questions?
Wait,
Did that answer your question?
I have another comment on that. Keep in mind that they're not expecting you to do 120% and not even 100%. Everybody who comes and does these things, they're always nervous. They're never 100%. They will always miss something. And the people who actually examine you, they know it. So,
and actually, the follow-up on that, it's not what you know in those situations, it's how you react, oftentimes.
And it's really important to just, take the pressure off and understand this is very standard. They see probably 10 of these a day, and it's completely normal. And even if you mess up and say the wrong word, or for me, it's my horrible accent in one way or the other, it's okay. And a way for me at least, to prepare for it, there are a lot of meetups here in the area for storytelling and presentation skills. And it's always great to see other people, mostly, not just for myself, but to see how other people struggle, because then I can think, how would I react in such a situation? And there are so many great classes here in the Bay. I highly recommend them.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I had somebody where they were given a homework assignment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't straightforward. It was like they were going to spend a half a day or a day putting something together and sent it in. They did. And then they got a second homework assignment. I said, make sure they're not just getting free work out of you right now.
Free work.
Either they're interested in you, get through the hiring process.
But I'll just say a quick anecdote. We had a person that was interviewing for a video producer job. This is at SanDisk a number of years ago. And the person we were bringing into had actually worked in a corporate environment. They had been taking care of their family for the past 10 years. But they did the video editing at home and did it as special projects. So we had 2 final candidates. We had this person who had been out of work, the corporate work, for 10 years. And then we had this professional video editor. And the lady who came in and did had the 10-year gap, it was all with her kids and different things was in the video. She ended up getting the job because she was the most creative thinker of the 2, right? So it's not a bad thing to go through these tests. It's just, to your point, how many of these are they putting you through? And is it reasonable? Yes, sir.
I'll always think of the zag to the zig, right? So they're asking you to do more of this work. Is it like they're just going to keep asking you until you tell them, I don't believe that this is appropriate, as to see your ability to handle conflict resolution? Is one other way to think of it.
Sounds like an Amazon interview.
No, I'm just saying, like, so for example, you're in an interview, you want to give the right answer. There was a presentation I was asked to do for some company, and it was basically, here's this idea for a product we want to do, go off and tell us about why we should do it. And I told them they shouldn't do it. That was the final sort of slide in it. It was, this does not make sense for the X, Y, whatever reason. And it was really funny to see the reaction was they said, nobody in any of the interviews had said we shouldn't do this. And that was the
So
beauty.
I'm gonna move on.
I'm
going to move on. I'm a little sensitive time here. I just have, I think, one more slide here that I want to show you. Just a few examples. These are real examples from resumes of people who didn't get the job. Whatever job it is, they didn't get it. Languages: English, Italian, and Spanish. Demonstrated ability in multitasking. I think that was the first one, right? Multitasking, right? Ran multinational product lunch with a $10 million budget. That was amazing. I want a product lunch. Filing, billing, printing, and scoping.
That was just honest.
That's honest. That's all it is. Seeking a party time position with potential for advancement. I mean, this is like thematic here. I think we're going to make
There's some
well.
Freudian
Personal interest. This is somebody really interested in getting metrics. Donating blood, 14 gallons so far. I am anxious to use my exiting skills. And perhaps my absolute favorite of them all, work experience dealing with customers' conflicts that arouse. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you so much. I had really good questions at the end. It was really great interactive discussion. I really appreciate it. I always learn something when I come here, so thank you, and enjoy. Thank you so much.